Major update, guys. We now know how the Nigerian Armed Forces rescued the kidnapped Oyo school children and teachers from the kidnappers, and you will not believe this. So come closer, let's talk, because it's quite complicated, but I'll try to break it down as best as I can. So basically, we're hearing that the moment these children and teachers were kidnapped, the armed forces swung into action. First of all, they located the forest to where they would have been kept and decided to surround it. Now, put in mind that this forest is so big. It's so big that through it, you could go to Niger Republic, basically. And we understand now that the kidnappers had plans to actually take these kids into another state, but they could not do it because the Nigerian Army, the DSS, and other security agencies mounted their guards to just basically surround the forest at a far distance, pretty much, just so that they could circle the spot and put an eye on it so the kidnappers don't go away with the children. Also, put in mind that they could not attack earlier on, given the fact that the kids were with them and they were armed with guns. And you know, they've already killed the teacher. So the police, the army, the DSS, they all know what these people are capable of. It could have been easy for them to go in on that first day or second day or even first or second week, but that may put the life of the children and the teachers at risk because the kidnappers would not hesitate to kill them. And that was not what the armed forces wanted. And so they came up with another brilliant plan. Now, put in mind that this is just not your ordinary kidnappers. We now know now that these kidnappers per se were terrorists. They were not looking for ransom. They wanted their leaders in their terrorism group to be released, because we are learning now that this particular group of kidnappers or this particular group of terrorists had two of their leaders arrested by the Nigerian Armed Forces. So this was a sector of their people trying to get them released, and they thought by kidnapping these children and holding them hostage, if they demand their leaders be released, they will be released. And this is when the negotiation began. We also learned that part of the reason why they surrounded the forest at a distance was to monitor supplies coming in and going out. And I think in between this, they may have arrested a few people. And through that, and even the ones they've arrested in the past, back in 2025, they were able to get information of some of the people who would have organized this abduction. But I have a question, because from what I heard, they said that the armed forces surrounded the forest to cut off supply of weapons, bombs, and basically money. But here's the issue here. If they cut off supplies from going to meet the kidnappers, that would also mean they would have cut off supplies of food, water, and other things. Unless maybe they would let that pass. At the end of the day, for 56 days, cutting off supplies, you can't cut off supply of wood, water, and food, and even clothes too. Those things clearly seeped through that forest to get to these children and teachers. And I think that is something the Nigerian army may want to explain to us. If they did block the entire or surround the forest to keep these kidnappers in one spot, how then was food and water and shelter and other things getting in? I think if they would spot those things going in, they would let it. That is just my thoughts, and that is my opinion. So moving on to one of the brilliant things that I think they did is the fact that when they eventually learn of some of the people in that camp with the children, they went to different states. The DSS themselves started going to Zamfara, Kaduna, all the places where each members of this terrorist group had their family members staying. And then they started picking up their wives, their children, their fathers, their mothers. They started picking up their families and then filmed their families just the same way they filmed the kidnappers and sent it to them, showing them that, see, if you touch those little children, if you touch those kids and the teachers, you see, your wife is here, your children are here, we will do the same thing to them. Now, this might look rash and look very unfair because the family of these kidnappers did not do anything, but put in mind that this is terrorism here. This is terrorism and all bets are off. This is a war. This is a fight. So if you feel they were wrong, fuck your feelings. If the DSS really did this, then they did the right thing. And I think this was a smart and a fair trade. They were able to track and trace those people in the forest who were with those children to find their own families, their own children, their own wives, video them the same way they video that woman every time, and send to them and say, please touch those children. We want to see you touch them, and let's see what will happen to your own kids with us. And I think that gave the terrorists and the kidnappers a sense of calm, and that would have played a role in how they had to make sure that those children were fine and safe, because now they know that the Nigerian armed forces are with their own family too. And I think this was a very brilliant move. All they had to do was identify who and who were in that forest with the kids, and once they did, all bets are off. Picked up their parents, picked up their children, their wives, their mother, just picked up everybody and held them hostage as well. Here is the thing, even at that, they knew that they were fucked. They knew that they were screwed. And so the terrorists still maintained their position, because now they know that they are surrounded, and now they know the only thing they have are the kids as leverage. However, they could not make much demands too, because the DSS are already with their own family. It was now a thing of now begging the Nigerian army, this is what we're made to believe, to please release some of their leaders for them. But that was not going to happen, because according to what the man said on the television, the leaders that were arrested were under the radar of the United States, and the United States has commended the Nigerian army for arresting them. So why would they want to release them back again? Because people are demanding their release because they are with their children. Yeah, that it will not look good. So that was not on the table. While the DSS are doing all of that, the army in the forest were also creating new paths to find these kidnappers, because there was one path leading to where they were going, but they could not, because that part had bombs and they lost some army men, some officers. So this group of armed forces needed to create a new path in the forest that their cars and tanks can pass through. And when eventually, somehow, some way, they got to the point where a shootout ensued, and luckily for them, they were able to overpower the terrorists and rescue the children. But that's a part of the gray area that we cannot get. So put in mind that I am not speaking for them. This was said on the news channel, so it's unclear what happens from then onwards. Now the question of were they released or were they rescued is what will play a role into this. Given the circumstances, given the nature of their strategy, it looks as though that they would have been released as well as rescued. I guess in this scenario, release and rescue may work from what I am understanding. If the DSS indeed held the family members of some of the kidnappers hostage as well, that would play a role for them not to hurt the kids or shoot or kill them. Because at the end of the day, they also want to go home to their families. At the same time, the DSS people who were with the families of these kidnappers were in a different place. Now, the people, or should I say the armed forces, the army officials, the officers who were on field, who were on ground in that forest for days, monitoring, planning, and trying to be careful so that they don't hurt the kids as well, played the role in rescuing them. So that is how this could be a case of rescue and a case of release. The terrorists would have shot and killed these kids if they wanted to, but when they notice and it's figured out that they've been figured out, they've been exposed, their name and faces, their family members have all been held, they knew not to mess with the kids, they knew not to touch the kids, they knew that for a fact. Even when the rescue officials got to them through a different path, they still know that they will not hurt the kids, because now they have a bigger fish to fry. And I guess it was they probably didn't see it coming, maybe, so, or they thought they could handle it. That part is not what's clear. An officer also lost his life in this moment, but put in mind that he was not the only officer that was lost. This officer that we're hearing about got killed in the very day of the shootout, but we are hearing that some officers initially in the past have also been killed. Maybe that time we heard a rumor of somebody who went to pay ransom and got killed would have been the time a member of the armed force would have lost their life, because we heard that some bombs and traps were set to the paths leading to where the kidnappers and the victims were, which would have caused the armed forces to create a new path for themselves, and that would have taken days. So yeah, this is all we have, this is all we know, and if this is true, God damn it, this is a very, very brilliant. I like the idea of having to give them a taste of their own medicine. You have those kids, we have your own children, we have your own wife, we have your own family, we have your mom, and we have your dad. And please mess up. Just touch those kids and see what will happen to yours. They filmed their family and sent to them so that they will know that the DSS we're not playing and they're not here for jokes. And it will be easy to get their names too. And I think it makes sense because if they've already arrested their commanders and their leaders who are in prison, and they've arrested a few other people, it will be easy to get names. We saw somebody who was arrested. There's a picture of a guy who was arrested with a particular trouser that was traced to be a trouser seen on the scene of when they were killing one of the teachers. I don't know if that guy also played a role in it, because people are saying he also is part of them. So if he's part of them, then, you know, clearly he would have named names of the people with the kids, and that would have helped the DSS to go and find their families. But that's a smart move, a smart trade, a smart strategy, in my opinion. And kudos to the Nigerian Armed Forces for doing this. I know they don't get a lot of credit. We always question them. At the end of the day, we will always question. I still have questions, but, you know, let's congratulate them for this, for bringing these kids out alive and also keeping them alive while in camp. And I believe now that the fact that they look healthy and they look stronger than they should, basically, and they looked well, they looked fed, they looked like they were not in dirty clothes. Part of it would have been the role of the fact that they needed to take care of them because their own families and children were in deep shit too. So just my thoughts. But you guys let me know what you think. Do you believe this narrative, or do you still feel that the whole thing was staged and planned? Now, I also want to address some comments I saw. Somebody said, oh, there's a picture going around showing one of the women with a mobile phone in her hand. I don't know if that's photoshopped, but if it's not, it does not really mean, you know, when they were captured, a lot of their properties will be kept somewhere. I believe so. So when they're being released, they will get it back too. The other woman was also asking about her car. Those things are equally as important. So they're grateful for life, but now they got to go back to life. And those things are properties. And those are things that they would also have to get back. Put in mind that these kidnappers are not hungry kidnappers. They're not here for money. So I don't think they will take the phone or take their properties or take their own money. So whatever wallet or bag or mobile phone they went with would have been kept somewhere in the kidnappers' den and given back to them upon release, in my opinion.